All right, so welcome back. We're all the way up to day 2. That would be B, and B is for backlog. Turns out that when you're doing writing and other things and publishing and all of the things, um, you'll end up with a backlog at some point of stuff that you meant to do or had to do or needed to do at some point and didn't do. And what ends up happening is you delegate to the future you to do them for you. Hey, future Rena, aren't you glad I actually went through and recorded this, future Rena? Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about is when you take something that you were supposed to do today and you put it off and you find yourself with this giant pile of work. The first thing is that you gotta step back and say, hey, that's a lot of work. And sometimes what you have to do is you have to take the backlog, the work that you were supposed to do, and recognize that no matter how much work you were supposed to do, maybe it's not humanly possible to do all of it. That's a good spot to start. And to think about how you could possibly do it. The reason this becomes a problem is because some people get this backlog going and then it makes the whole process seem impossible. When it seems impossible, you're not going to work very well. You're not going to get your work done. You're not going to get it done on time, and you're certainly not going to be happy about working on all of the crazy work that you have to do. So when you end up with this giant backlog, there are a couple of things you have to remember. The big ones. There are only so many ways to do things, and that's, one leg at a time. How do you put on pants in the morning? One leg at a time. They say, well, I step into them both and then pull it up at the same time. But, I'm different that way. But there's a saying when you have a big pile of work to do, the question is, how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. And this comes up a lot in writing because what can happen, especially once you move into the publishing side of things, is that there you are, you've got a book that you're working on, and say your publisher gets back to you with another book. So you have a work in progress that you're writing madly because you're trying to meet some sort of either self-imposed deadline or real deadline put on you by other people. And somebody suddenly needs you to read all of a book. It'll either be like a friend for a beta read because they've got something going out. Okay, so you have to read this book, and you have this work in progress that has to be done. Then your publisher gets back to you with edits on another book that you thought was actually doing quite well, but instead, no, it actually needs to be edited, and it needs to be edited now. And you find yourself suddenly holding on to the tail end of a whole bunch of things that needed to happen all at once. That's rough. The only way to get through that is to just start chopping off the pieces that you can do and do them, recognizing that some of them you cannot do. So some things will start to fall to the wayside. That's really hard. You will have to learn to say no. It's not easy, but trust me, it'll help in the end. So when I find myself in those situations, sometimes what I look for is I look for people who can help. Is there somebody who owes me a favor? Because I am constantly needing favors done for me, I often bake people cookies and scones. My house is often cookie and sconeville. And then later on, I'm like, remember that time when I baked you those scones? You will now read this thing for me because I need it proofread by tomorrow morning. Please? Could you please? So, yeah, you'll find that you have a backlog, and sometimes you have to prepare for it because you know it's going to come someday in the future. So, build those bridges now, work on those networks. The backlog, it will come, and it will be terrifying when it gets here. All right, good luck.